Let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it.
Y'all, today I have some model makeup, so watch me turn my girl from this to this. Also, today we have a Meg Thee Stallion inspired look. Over on TikTok, they always say my girl resembles her. I think she could be like her cousin or something. What y'all think? Right. So, of course, we're going to start off with the brows. And today I took Too Faced in Butterscotch, and I started off at the front of her eyebrow. And then I took Warm Beige and did underneath the arch of her eyebrow. This is a flat brush from Shein, and I use this all the time. I take my time doing her brows, and it's really hard for me to do it with my right hand on her right side. So it just takes me a little longer, but I figured it was good for this video for y'all to see. After I finish carving out the brows, I always take the concealer down onto the eyelid so I can use it for eyeshadow base. If we're going to use colorful ones, then I would just use a white eyeshadow base, but because it's going to be a neutral look, it was okay for the concealer. And we're going to do the same thing to the other eyebrow girl. If y'all want to know more details about how I do eyebrows, please purchase my I Slayed Natural Glam ebook. It's for beginners. It's great. It has my product list inside, my step-by-step and tips and tricks. Learn everything you need to know. Purchase this ebook. The link and everything will be in the description. Just go down and click it and you should be directed to my Etsy store. I'm going to take this Real Technique dupe brush I got from Shein. Y'all know all my dupes come from Shein. So we're going to tap this concealer so that way it's blended out. You want to make sure you don't see any lines or streaks on the eye, so you don't want to swipe at all. Make sure you get in the corners by the nose and blend the outside of the tail. After I just set with a little translucent setting powder, this is going to help my blending be flawless. I don't always set the eyelid. I only set it when I'm doing some neutral colors. If I'm doing colorful ones, then I don't set the eyes. I used one palette for this entire look, so that would be easy for y'all to copy. So that's the palette that I used. And I'm just going to take a brown over in the top right corner to use as her transition shade. I'm going to start putting that in her crease and then slowly work my way up, blending that out. After that, I go in with a dark brown from the same palette, and with this color, we're going to focus on the outer part of the eye, sort of winging it out. Megan's looks always have like that wing for her eyes, so we want to focus all of the colors towards the outside of her eyes. As y'all can see, I picked up a different brush. I use a different brush for every color, and I just take a darker brown. This one is actually from the new Persuasion palette because I wanted to use a really muted brown, so I just still focus that right underneath where I put that last brown. In between each of my color placements, I go in with the brush before the previous brush I used with no extra eyeshadow, just to blend out the edges to make sure all the colors blend in seamlessly and still show at the same time. Then I go in with that first brush just to blend out the edges again. I took a black from that palette and a smaller brush. Now I'm going to blend out just on the edges. This black isn't going to go into the front of her eye. You just want to keep it on the outside. The whole time y'all are gonna see me just go back and forth between all of these brushes. I really like to make sure that my eyeshadows are blending seamlessly, and I was kind of having a hard time with this, so y'all gonna see me blend a lot. Afterwards, I took another Real Technique dupe brush, yeah, and some Too Faced Clouds concealer. Y'all know I always use this as my base, and I'm just gonna pat this in the shape I want on her eyelid and slowly blend it out. I don't add any more base to her eyelid than what you see now. This is just all blending. Afterwards, I go in with that first brush with no extra eyeshadow and just blend out the front part of that base so it blends in with the eyeshadow. I'm just going to repeat the same steps onto the other eye, just slowly blending it up. It dried a little bit on this eye because I let it sit, so I just grabbed a little extra from my hand and used that to pat out the edges. If your concealer ever dries down and you can't blend out the edges, just take a little bit more of the product and slowly blend it out. It should blend out perfectly after that. So I'm going to take the gold from the palette and I'm going to just focus this on the middle of her eyelid, not taking it too far to the front because we're going to add another color. After I place down that gold, I just take another brush that I use for the dark brown and just blend it out the edges so I can make sure it's blended seamlessly. There's this nice like champagne gold color in the palette. That's the color I use for the front part of her eyes. It added a little bit of like a gradual effect. It looks so pretty. Then I took this pigment and put it on top. Unfortunately, I do not remember who this pigment is from, but it came in one of those pigment stacks, and I just put this on top of the gold just to add a little extra shimmer. I took a white shimmer to the inner tear duct just to add a little pop. And all of these are from the same palette, so you can use the same palette for this entire look. For some reason, I didn't want to use my in-gloss gel liner. I do not know why, but I took this black shadow and I just placed it on her eye so that way it looked like a eyeliner line. Afterwards, I took this Neutrogena wipe and I just cleaned up her face. I made sure I cleaned up her eyeshadow so I wouldn't have to worry about going over too much with my concealer. Today, we're going to do contour first, which I didn't do all the time, but Megan has like a flawless face and you can tell they do like some undershadows. I'm going to take this contour stick from Juvia's Place and a foundation stick from Black Opal, and I'm just going to put that where I would normally put her contour shades. And of course, I'm blending it out with another Real Technique dupe from Shein. Y'all got to get them. They're great. I actually put way too much contour on the right side of her face, so I had to do some extra blending. As y'all can see, it's a little bit darker on that side, but it's okay because we're going to correct it later. I don't know about y'all, but I really, I don't know, like a forehead contour just looks great to me. So I'll be having to make sure the forehead is nice and bronzed up. I took the same brush I did her eyebrows with and I just placed her foundation underneath where I put her concealer so that way I could pat it in and make it seamless. I always go through and do it in sections. I prefer to do it in sections. It just works better. That way I know where to add some extra products and where I need to take it away. Now, when you're doing your face, your client's face, your cousin's face, your sister's face, your auntie face, please make sure you blend that foundation underneath their chin and near their earlobe so that way you cannot see a line between their actual face and their foundation. Taking the same concealer I used for her eyebrows, this is Butterscotch. I'm just going to put it in a triangle underneath her eyes. This is where I normally place my concealer, so we're just going to go through and do that routine. Because I didn't do foundation first, I'm going to take this concealer and I'm going to carve out her eyebrows. Y'all know usually I use foundation, but we didn't do it, so I'm just going to use this concealer instead. Now that her concealer is all placed down, I'm going to take that same Real Technique brush I used for her foundation and I'm going to go through and blend out the edges so that way it can blend into the contour. Just do the edges so that way the middle part of the concealer can take some time to dry. Y'all know if y'all let it dry a little bit, it builds up more coverage, so I don't touch the inside of her eye. Then I'm going to take this pink blush from Rare Beauty by Selena. I love all of the matte shades and I'm just going to put this on her cheeks. I took Warm Beige from Real Technique and I just put this in the inner corners of her eye. This we're going to use for a brightening shade. I'm going to take my Real Technique dupe brush and I'm going to blend out the concealer I put on her nose and in between her eyebrows. Blend out her nose, make sure you take this time to blend in between the front of the eyebrows so it looks more natural. Taking the same color I contoured her face with, I'm just going to place this on her nose. I'm not blending out right now, I'm just putting it on her face. This is a different brush that I use for her foundation. I'm going to use this just to pat out that blush to her concealer and into her contour so that way it all blends together. I think I need to do a video on Real Technique dupe brushes because I've been using them this whole video. Here go another one we're going to take and we're going to blend out the nose contour. When I do my nose contour, I blend it out until the tip of her eyebrow so that way I can make sure there's no lines of demarcation. You don't have to do this. It's different for everyone's face shape, but I like to do this for her. I just recently started doing this, so I'm going to use my powder puff to blend out the inner corners of her concealer. This really gets in the corner of her eye, so it's really easy for me to blend it out, and this works great for people who have watery eyes. For some reason, when you put the brush up to their eyes, like the little bristles on the brush kind of irritate people's eyes sometimes, so this is a really good, easy way to get those concealers blended out. Using that same powder puff, yes, I said the same powder puff, I'm going to take my setting powder. This time I used Banana Bread by Huda, and I'm just going to tap this underneath both of her eyes, blending it out on the edges. Please don't put this on your face and just leave the edges not blended out. Everything you want to do, you want to blend it out, so that way it's less blending for the next step. I'm going to take this and set underneath her eyes. I'm also going to do some baking on her nose, and I'm also going to use this to set her entire forehead. I use this shade to set over the contour on her forehead as well, so it can neutralize the color. I also put this on her chin. To set her face where I put the foundation, this is a shade from Anastasia. I think it's Cookie, and I use this just to set the areas that I haven't set already. I usually don't do this. I usually just bake after I do the contour, but I was trying to switch it up this routine. Now I'm going to take my face palette from KKAL Beauty, and I'm just going to use this to contour her cheeks and her forehead. I also use this same palette in the same shade just to contour her nose so everything can be the same color. I love this palette because it's very neutral. It's not too warm and not too cool. It's just perfect for everyone. Next, I'm going to take a different brush in my ColourPop bronzer. This is in the shade Pacific Sun, and I'm just going to use this to bronze up her face because that palette before was just very neutral, so all it did was contour, so we want to add some color back into her face. I also use this same brush for her blush. This is from Juvia's Place. I can't remember which one it is though, I'm sorry. I'm going to take this same powder puff, yes, and I'm going to use my translucent powder from Dermablend, and we're going to bake under her eyes and underneath her cheekbones. Now it's time to prep for lashes. I'm just going to take this Duo Lash Glue and I'm going to put it on her eyelid where I'm going to place her lashes. And I also put the Duo Lash Glue on the band of the false eyelash. I don't always do this, but I clean off her lips before I do the lip liner, so that way I have a good line of where I'm going to put it already. I'm going to take a brown eyeshadow from that same Morphe palette with another Real Technique dupe brush, yes, and I'm going to blend out that black liner underneath her waterline. Taking my mascara, I always do bottom lashes first and then the top because you don't want any product to get on her eyelid while she's looking up. So I always do the bottom lashes first. Then I'm going to put her eyelashes on her eye. When I do lashes, I do the outer corner of the eye and then I place it on the inner corner. It's just easy for me to do it that way. And I have them look to the floor and not close their eyes. So you can see the lash line if you don't close your eyes all the way. Now we're going to do the lips. So this is Cork from MAC and I'm just going to use this to line the outside of her lips. I have her press her lips together so I can see the outline. This is really good for the bottom but not so good for the top. So when I do this, I still outline the top of her lip, but I have her unpress her lips so that way I can fill it in and make sure I have the correct shape. Because when you press your lips together, ultimately, this is not the shape it's going to be when you rest your lips. So it might be a little different when you get done. I also take this brown and I blend in towards the inside of her lips so the liner is going to look a little thick. And I also blend in the corners of her lips so that way it'll be ombre with her lipstick. Taking a disposable lip brush, I go ahead and blend out the edges of the lip liner. This is going to make sure that your lips are seamlessly blended together if you go ahead and blend everything previously. I take my Dose Color lipstick and I just place it in the middle of her lips and then I have her pat her lips together so that way the lipstick can be on the top and the bottom. I go in and just add some more lip liner where it's needed. Now usually, again, I don't do this much lip liner, but we're going off of Megan's look and her top lip is a little darker so she doesn't have the same brightness on the top and the bottom. So I went through and just blended through with a little more lip liner. Then I go through with a clear gloss. Today I only use clear gloss for her lips, so I do my lip liner first and then the middle of her lips because I don't want the lipstick to transfer too much to the lip liner. And then of course I have her pat her lips together so that way it can naturally blend. Taking a clean taper brush, I'm just going to go through and pat in all of that translucent powder into her face and it's going to disappear. Please make sure when you blend underneath her jawbone and into her ear and up until her nose contour. This is going to make sure everything is just blended together seamlessly and you don't have any lines of demarcation or lines between her makeup and her face. Well, her neck, because obviously the makeup is on her face already, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Blending this up into her nose contour is going to make sure her nose contour isn't too harsh. Sometimes I find that my nose contour is a little harsh for me, so taking these powders and blending them over where you already have the contour will help them get toned down a little bit. I'm taking a lighter shade in that same complexion palette just to add a little brightness under her eyes, and I go through with her bronzer just to define her cheekbones a little bit because it got a little lost. Next, we're going to set her face so that way there's no flashback and none of that powdery mess. And I'm going to go through and just add some more eyeshadow onto her eyes because as she was looking up, the black transferred. I don't always add highlight everywhere. I just add highlight to the tip of the nose and the bridge of the nose and in between the forehead. I used to do it on the cheeks, but I don't know. It's just a little too much for me. I've grown out of it. After I add the highlight, I'm going to set her face again, and I'm just going to take a clean powder puff. This is actually the same powder puff. I just wiped it off, and I'm just going to press in that powder and that setting spray together. And this is the finished look. I hope you guys really like this tutorial. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.